Hi guys, I'm Shmee and hello to you from the Mini. Now I've had this car for about 6 months, but still, every single time I take it out for a drive, it puts this gigantic grin on my face, especially when you're pooting around London streets. You can't have this much fun in anything else or any other type of car. This, the Morgan three-wheeler back when I had it, just quirky little things that aren't about speed in any way, shape or form. This is where a supercar is basically dead to the world. It is pointless. But today, because I haven't driven this car for a while, I wanted to take it out and ponder on another topic and basically shoot another video in my series, Fuel for Thought. So today while driving around, I want to discuss Video 3, which is going to be about brand relationships and limited edition supercars. But just by way of a quick reminder, we had Video 1 in the Ferrari FF, where I was driving it around much where I am right now, talking about what it costs to own and use a car like the Ferrari FF, which is something I know people don't tend to know too much about from the outside. It's very hard to get those sort of facts, figures and numbers until you're owning it and doing it. Then Video 2, we were up in Scotland driving in the Focus RS, discussing in general how to get a supercar. So that was from a sort of quite basic level. What is it in terms of education, studies, university, and jobs and careers? And I think my sort of concluding point was along the lines of that it's more important you enjoy what you're doing, you have enthusiasm for it, because pretty much in any career, if you aim and that's what you would like, you can potentially achieve that goal one day, if that is obviously your goal. But today, we're driving around in the Mini. I haven't driven it for about 2 months prior to today because basically, as you might remember, it suffered a little dink parked on the streets in London. And it's been at Dub Customs getting repaired. Then I've been away for a while. It literally came back from Dub right at the end of one of my videos. I think I did a brief glimpse of it before putting it away. Then I went to Dubai. Then I've been busy in Portugal for the E63S launch and basically haven't driven it. So I wanted to take it out and shoot another video and talk to you about this topic, which seems particularly hot right at the moment, both in terms of the cars I've got coming, the Vantage GT8, the AMG GTR, and the Ford GT, but also in terms of cars, limited hypercars, like the AMG 001, McLaren's Project BP23 codename, and how Ferrari do their system, and basically all sorts. So I want to run over this a little bit from my understanding, and I guess what I see in my experience. To kick us started, I think we will go with the Vantage GT8, which, by the way, I really hope you're enjoying the videos at the moment. It is utterly amazing what Aston Martin are letting me do, and I seriously appreciate every moment of it, because from an emotional perspective, I am becoming insanely sort of attached to that car, seeing it all the way through, and there's more to come that we've already filmed that you haven't seen yet. And the reason for that is that because I'm basically going to be going away over Christmas to join my family, I'm going to be away over New Year, and then I'm going to be away in Dubai in early January. It basically makes no sense whatsoever for me to take delivery of it until it's a 2017 car. So what I'm kind of slightly doing is spreading out the content. It would be built maybe just before Christmas and ready, but by spreading it out means we've got some cool content to come. Gives me slight amounts of time off making videos every day over the Christmas period, and hopefully we'll keep you all excited, because I am utterly, there are no words for it. So GT8 is going to be coming in early 2017, which is going to be amazing. But let's talk about the car from a limited edition point of view. There are 150 of them, which basically is going to end up in a world where Aston Martin are pretty, I guess, selective and choosy about their customers, but equally they want to make sure the cars end up in the hands of people who A, want them, and B, are going to drive them and use them. So from my perspective, I thought this car might exist always. After the GT12, I thought there might be a V8 version. So I had talked to the dealer, sort of laid down my thoughts. I've owned an Aston Martin before, so I've got a little bit of a relationship there. I had my 4.7 Vantage Roadster, and the GT8 is the sort of last hurrah, the final version of that car. So it's a very natural fit for me. I got wind through online, basically discussion boards and chats, that something might be coming in the Aston Martin community. So I walked into a dealer and said, is this happening? Can I put down a deposit? And they said, maybe. So I placed my deposit, and then a couple of weeks later, it was information time, at which basically they had waited until they were all sold out to tell us and reveal the car at the Silverstone World Endurance Championship race in April. At that point, all 150 cars were sold, or like me, deposits placed, waiting for people to confirm their orders, which I presume just about everybody did, and if they didn't, they already had a wait list. So that was about having the relationship with Aston Martin, being an enthusiastic fan in the market in general, so seeing when a car would become available, and just keeping in the loop, keeping in contact, keeping talking, and waiting for it to come out to make sure that eventually I'd be able to secure one of the 150 production cars. There are also three prototype cars that have gone for sale on the market as well. So that's how that one worked. It's an amazing story for me, and I think quite relevantly I'd like to talk here a little bit. Oh, it's a Morgan electric three-wheeler. Awesome. That was really cool. That's probably quite fun to drive around London, and I would love to give it a go at some point. Yeah, so I've completely lost where I was. In terms of GT8, it's a car I'm very, very connected to. The opportunities I'm getting to be able to see the story. I don't necessarily see me driving crazy mileage in it. It's far too collectible and special for that. I don't want to risk anything happening to it. The body is mostly carbon fiber. If anything happened, it would be desperately expensive. So I want to ensure it's looked after absolutely as best as possible, but also I want to keep it for a long time, which means I want to preserve it and keep it nice for all the sort of future miles and opportunities I'm going to get. As you might have seen from Evo Car of the Year, they basically all said it's amazing when they drive it for the first time, and that's what it is. It's a special occasion car. It's not a daily driver. It's got a freaking loud titanium exhaust, so I want to treat it like a very special car, and hold on to it for a very long time as a result. So let's move to the AMG GTR, which is a car, there are no sort of confirmed exact numbers, but it will be a rough limited build. There'll probably be a couple of thousand, let's say 2,000 of them, roughly in line with the Porsche 911 GT3, but fewer than the GT3 RS, interestingly, because I think there are about 4,500 of those in total. So the AMG GTR, I actually saw some spy shots of this in Autocar magazine, a couple of other magazines, and I was interested already in a GTS. You guys don't know, but I actually nearly bought a GTS back last year after buying the FF GT4 and the LT Coupe, but held back because it seemed totally pointless. So I've always been interested in the AMG GT, and the GTR seemed like the perfect opportunity for me. It's a slightly more focused, more exciting version of an already exciting car. So I went into Mercedes, placed a completely blind deposit, because at the time I was doing this, they didn't even know what it was. Obviously the sales team in the dealership, I mean, I'm sure some people did, but it wasn't released, it hadn't come out in Goodwood yet. So that was all very blind. Waited to see it come out at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. Well, actually it was launched at Mercedes-Benz World Brooklands the night before it was taken to Goodwood. And I guess that went from there. I don't know if it's sold out yet, but I imagine if you try and order one now, there's quite a long wait list to get your hands on it. Who knows? So again, I guess being interested, I've not owned a Mercedes before. I walked in blind to the dealer, but the way Mercedes are going to be delivering those cars, or certainly in the UK, and remember this varies from country to country, is a first come first served deposit basis. So anybody who put down their name or their money for an AMG GTR or a hardcore version of the AMG GT gets it in that order. They have announced slight delays, which means my car, I guess, might come towards the later half of next year, summer onwards. Right-hand drive will be slightly later, but I'll know a lot more about this because pretty much at the time this video goes out, I'm probably on the test drive of it, which is going to be awesome. So I'll bring that to you as soon as I can. Then the Ford GT, we pretty much all know about Ford's process with the Ford GT. And how they wanted cars to go into the hands, firstly, of people who are going to drive them, use them, own them, and share them. And secondly, didn't really have any previously existing system for allocating supercars, because the last Ford supercar, sorry, was 10-12 years before. So they created this system whereby some would go to people in the social media world, such as myself, some would go to celebrities, some would go to car collectors, some would go to racing drivers, some would go to existing GT owners, and so on and so forth, which has been an interesting system because it's definitely upset a lot of people along the way. But this is a completely different company. Ford aren't going for the sort of Ferrari approach where you buy every single model from the same company. So totally different way of doing it. I find myself very, very fortunate to be in that position, to have one coming. But again, that's a lot down to brand relationships. I think people forget that I went to the launch of the car in Detroit. I went to the launch of the race car at Le Mans when they announced they were going to come back to Le Mans, so the year before they raced. I went to the launch of the Focus RS. I went to basically as many Ford events as I could on the process, because I was very, very keen on one day ending up with a GT in the garage, and I wanted to build that relationship. and I was very keen on it to start. I loved the car from the minute I filmed it for the first time in Detroit. I mean, go watch my videos and you'll see quite how crazy I was about it. So I wanted to nurture that relationship, and eventually found myself lucky enough that I've got my name on one. The slightly frustrating news is that it might be a little bit further away than I would like. I think there's a potential that we could be talking years before my Ford GT arrives. But I'm talking to them, trying to find out when my slot will be for sure. But don't be too surprised if the car doesn't rock up until 2018, 2019. I don't even know. I don't even know at this stage. We shall see. They're going to build them for 4 or 5 years, and I'll be somewhere down there. So that's how all of my cars have worked, and I think the short summary is it's relationships, it's buying cars from brands in certain instances, but it's just being on top of the news and what you're interested in. You know, any of these cars, you can end up placing a deposit that you lose as well, by the way. That's quite relevant. If you decide you don't want the car, they might not necessarily have to return it, or equally, you might want the car and the car might plummet in value. So I guess by being a car guy and spending a lot of time reading, because I'm a nerd at heart, I find out about an awful lot of this stuff. Excuse me, I'm losing my throat a little bit, my voice. So let's talk now about the new round of hypercars, which firstly is spectacularly exciting. We're about to have a world with the Aston Martin Red Bull AMG 001 when it gets its final name, which is a Le Mans car for the roads. Then we're going to have the Mercedes hypercar, which I think is codename X1, which is, again, a Le Mans style hypercar for the roads with a Formula 1 engine. So Formula 1 engine in there and a V12 in the Aston is going to make for a very, very interesting pairing. And then we've also got the McLaren BP23. So BP23 is, again, the codename, bespoke Project 2 after the old X1 concept. Not concept, the X1 car that went to Bahrain, and 3-seater BP23. So that is sounding pretty exciting. I think most allocations have now been done, and it's quite an unusual one, because on one hand you have people who have barely had any McLarens securing one, and on the other hand you have people who have an F1 and haven't received one, which you might have seen. That's been an interesting topic in, I guess, in my world. But again, this is down to relationships with the brand. It's all well and good buying a car if you bought it secondhand or didn't buy it new, and don't talk to the company every week or two, or whatever. I guess you're not 100% in their radar. And every company is going to have a different system. For example, Ferrari have this kind of points system based on which of their special cars you own. So if you own XX cars, Corsa Clienti Formula 1 cars, limited edition cars, it all adds up and gives you a certain number of points, which puts you in line to buy LaFerrari, or your super special LaFerrari Aperta, or the like, or whatnot. So it's all a different system, manufacturer to manufacturer, but I think number one thing to really sort of secure these cars is basically relationships with the brand, and working on basically being friends with them and doing everything you can to keep on the list. But I guess if everybody did that, it would all go pretty wrong and nobody would ever end up getting one anyway. Sometimes you have things like Porsche. I think they're an interesting case study. Something like the GT3 RS or 911R, there are so many people that want them that basically Porsche have to restrict not giving everyone everything. Certain people get some cars and others get others, which is, I guess, a different way. Unless, of course, you're in the US, where because they were trying to sell lots more 918s, they introduced the VIP scheme, where if you bought if you bought a 918 from new and kept a hold of it for a while, it basically meant you're on the shortlist to get everything ever that you ever want, so long as you keep your original 918. So that's quite a cool system, I guess, if you jumped in and made the most of it. Doesn't work so well now if you want the limited edition cars and can't quite make it. So one thing, thinking about, I guess, my cars that are on order, is that given that there's, well, when the GT8 arrives, there's a little bit of a delay before the AMG GTR arrives. I'm kind of interested to see if I would like to buy something else as a sort of short-term proposition, kind of instead of GT4, to use on tours and things. So something like maybe an F-Type SVR, maybe order the new McLaren, the 720S, the P14, the replacement to the 650S, which from everything I've heard is pretty mental, both in terms of how it looks and what it's capable of. So that's quite an exciting proposition. but that might not arrive for a little. What has happened to my voice today? Geesh, I've been talking to the camera for too long, clearly. Yeah, so the 720S is an interesting idea. I don't know, do you have any ideas? Let me know. Is there anything that should be of interest? Obviously I'm not going to go and buy something new that's going to plummet in value and then I'm going to massively regret it. But if there was something that ticked the boxes, that is very, very orange. New Mini. Kind of the opposite of this, which by the way, I'm still enjoying driving as we poodle around. But yeah, let me know if you have any thoughts on what might be of interest to add to my fleet. Now, while I'm driving the Mini around London, this is an opportunity, I suppose, to move back onto why you shouldn't necessarily drive supercars around the centre of the city. Because this week there have actually been two incidents. One, a Ferrari Speciale that very, very sadly came off the road in Battersea and went into a small crowd of pedestrians. I think 6 people were injured. Sounds like no fatalities, which is the most important thing, but obviously something went wrong there, some driver error, some sort of incident meant that people got injured as a result of someone's driving, which is a disastrous situation. I just hope everyone's going to be okay. And then the other one was an Aventador SV that had a straight up crash and rear-ended 2 cars on Park Lane. So yeah, that kind of stuff happens. Those are quite likely down to driver error, but it's not really my place to get involved in that world. It just sort of shows that, you know, cars like that, it's just too much for the city. And as much as I used to love driving supercars around like central London, I realise now a lot more about why it was perhaps a little bit stupid and unnecessary. So that's why I drive this or the Focus or the FF just gently and slowly. And again, you know, I get a lot of people recently asking me why I don't drive really hard on videos. Why, when I'm shooting a video like this, do I just poodle around rather than flooring it and gunning it everywhere? And the short answer is, firstly, I don't want to set a bad example for how to drive like a moron, because that's not my style or game at all. Secondly, you don't gain anything. You know, I get to spend a lot of time on the track at different events on windy roads where there are no other cars around or no other people around. And if something happens there, I don't hurt someone. If something happens going down Park Lane, potentially I hit somebody, change my life, change their lives. It's not a game I want to play, so I save my interesting driving. I mean, in the last 12 months alone, I've been around Anglesey, I've been around Portimao, I've been around Circuit Navarra with my LT, I've been around the Nürburgring and the Focus RS. I've been around a lot of other tracks. I've raced at Hockenheim, I've driven windy roads a lot in the south of France, massive number of trips in Italy. I took all of my cars to Bosnia and Montenegro. I think I drive cars pretty hard, and in fact, I suspect the previous video to this one is me pushing the LT Spider pretty hard with the launch controls. If I haven't put that out yet, you'll see it pretty soon. So basically, I think there's a time and a place for driving hard, and the streets of London, or videos where I'm just uploading something like this, they are not the time to drive in a stupid fashion. So I don't intend to do that or go that way at any point. So don't expect to start seeing me driving like what I would call a Muppet anytime soon. And another thing about driving cars hard is that I quite often find myself at the wheel of some really expensive privately owned cars. I don't want to crash them. So remember, if I'm driving someone's LaFerrari or 918 or something like that, I could boot it, but if I mess it up, I could be faced with a couple of £1 million bill or something ridiculous. And I like to have fun, but controlled fun, and not push that line too far. I want to enjoy the experience. I don't want to go home having completely messed up my future because I have to pay back something that I've destroyed. Obviously, I'll only ever drive a car if it's insured to some extent, but you have big excesses. You sometimes might only have third-party only cover, which obviously I value depending on the car. Oh, come on, into gear. There we go, bit cold there. Yeah, so that's something else to think about as well. So I think I've more or less touched on everything that I planned on touching on today. The brand relationships is the main thing, to get onto those lists for the limited edition cars. You know, yes, I would love to get a new 911R, I would love to get a Ferrari F12 TDF, but I don't have those relationships. You know, the cars I do get are because I have relationships with those brands, and those are the ones I work on because those are the cars that are of interest to me. And already now I'm obviously thinking years ahead, what's coming, what would I like to get down the line, and working on those, because that's how this world works. There's no sort of checkbox that says this counts and this doesn't. It's just a fluid game that's different for everyone, different countries, different systems, different everything. So I guess that's my fuel for thought for today. I've basically gone around in one massive circle, which is amusing, but there we go. Let me know if you have any thoughts for what else you'd like to know in a future video, and I'll come back to you with that very, very soon. But for now, I think next up will be the AMG GTR press drive. I am very excited about that one. And then we've got some pretty exciting stuff coming with the GT8 through to delivery. That's it for now though. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I will catch up with you again very, very soon. Cheers.